Continue. Okay. Okay. So. Mhm. Hello. Welcome to our first in this new series of podcasts from Raven Chronicles. I can get my notes up here. Sorry. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Phoebe Boucher, Managing Editor at Raven Chronicles Press. Raven is a Northwest literary organization that's been around since 1991. This year, Raven's podcast series focus is why we do what we do. Writers and creative artists talk about what drives them to write, paint, juggle, what's behind the poem, the painting, the photograph, what's in it for them, what's in it for readers and audience members. We are grateful to Raven's co-sponsors for partial funding of our programs, the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, which is our CARE grant, and For Culture, King County Lodging Tax, and Doors Open Funding, and to all the Raven supporters and book buyers. Excuse me if I massacre these names, but today Nina Burokas will be talking to Arlene Naganawa, and I will put their full bios in the oh God, excuse me. Gonna get some people here. My tech person isn't working today, so of course I'm doing that. A writer and educator, Nina's poetry appears in Port Angeles Fine Arts Center's Sculpture Park and in the anthologies. This machine is made for Earth, inspired by art, tea cakes, and tarot. Oh boy, and Winter in America again, in her chapbook Wintering and online at Unleashed Lit and Silver Birch Press. She's an adjunct business instructor at Mendocino College in California. Nina has been a contributing author editor for 5 digital business titles. Let's see if there's somebody else there. Okay. Arlene's work appears in Calyx, Fatal Flaw, Mom Egg Review, The Inflectionist, Thimble, Waxwing, Whale Road Review, and other journals. Her collections include I Weave a Nest of Foil. We have a review by Nina of that book on our website, and that's Kelson Books. And we were talking about When We Had Bodies, Ravenna Press, The Ark and the Bear, Floating Bridge Press, and Private Graveyard, Gribble Press. Of course, those aren't the only publications, but she received grants from City Artists Seattle and Artist Trust. She was a writer in the schools for Seattle Arts and Lectures, Hugo House Youth Instructor, and she has been a Pongo poetry mentor with incarcerated youth. Afterwards, you have questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in chat and we'll read them. And now I'm turning it over to Nina.
Thanks, JB. And I would like to actually just kick it off right away with a reading from Arlene. And this is actually one of my requests, one that I almost derailed me from the review, but it hooked me, and that's CVS, which is the first poem in her book, I Weave a Nest of Foil.
Okay. CVS. I had given up the material world, but was tempted by snacks and cellophane bags. I searched for thin places where the spirit might find me, where angels might touch my blue dress. Plastic cups lined a counter, gold, translucent red. I ran my finger around the lips as if a sacrament. I could hardly believe the bounty, aisles wide and clean, shelves of hair ties and Kleenex. Surely God must enter through the automatic doors. Outside, rain blustered through the trees. Inside, only sounds of customers dropping mints and toothbrushes into their baskets, shuffle of soles on linoleum. The sky flicked white, electric.
Wow.
I tell you, those kinds of stores are pretty fun. I've always enjoyed.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever look at a CVS or anything else the same way again. I'll keep an eye on the automatic doors.
Well, you have to see who's coming, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
But it's really funny, actually, when you think of our consumer culture that, that it really is, that exchange is kind of our God, the money in the exchange of commerce. But I wanted to start actually at the beginning, which was when you started thinking of yourself as a poet, or when you started writing, and how far that went back, and when you got a sense of that as what you wanted to do.
Well, I didn't actually start writing till after I graduated from college. My degree was English literature and education, and I didn't really start writing until after I started teaching. But I've thought about this a lot, and it goes way back to being a reader. So I started reading before kindergarten, and unlike many kids who saw life through sports or horses or music or dancing, it was all through reading fiction.
Mm.
Lots of books, and we didn't have a lot of money, but when we could always buy a book, a comic book or a book. And my mom worked for the Salem Public Library, so when the bookmobile came, we always, I think it came once a month, we always left with a stack of books. And I think, and this is probably true for lots of kids who grow up reading, that the fictional world and the world made of language becomes your real world as well. And so you're sort of in and out and aware that words can make things be real. And those early books were, animals, Wind in the Willows, and all those stories about little kids. But as I got older, I never gave up the idea that you can make things new out of language. And so I didn't really start writing until I took some writing classes as an undergrad at the UW, and it was terrible. It was really bad. And the teachers were not were
We all start out really bad.
not encouraging. I took a class from John Haynes, who was like really not encouraging. And so then I thought, oh, well, forget it. I'm not going to do that. And then when I started teaching high school, my colleague was James Mitsuo Mitsui, and he did a little, I think it was a week workshop for teachers on poetry. And he's a really good teacher, and he made it really accessible, and his work is really accessible. And so we were writing like 2 poems a day, but he had all these strategies to do it. And so that's when I really started to write poetry and think, oh, I could do it. So that was where I started doing that.
Right. That's so interesting what you said about that, the imagination, that blurring the line between what's real, what you're living, and what you're reading, and that type of thing. Because I still see that. I still see that in some of the, well, I, let them open like flashlights, or sand left whisperless. I mean, that seems to me to be that that imagination that can see that and put that language together, which is a real delight. Um, as you started writing, did it feel like you needed to accumulate wins to kind of bolster your sense of yourself as a poet? Um, you know, Publications or other acknowledgement. What was what was your sense of self as a poet?
Well, I was really lucky. Back then, when I started writing, there were hardly any MFA programs, so there wasn't a lot of competition. But right away, right, there really wasn't. And so in Jim's little workshop, some of those poems got published right away.
Oh, nice.
Within a couple months. And actually, those came pretty fast. And I think Anne was an editor at Anne Spires at the Seattle Review. I mean, and some of those poems are super early, but then being able to be in those journals, that was pretty validating. And unlike my undergrad experience where it was like no business doing this, it was like, oh, well, maybe I did have a little business doing it. So it was encouraging. But we were talking about this before people came on. It doesn't matter so much to me anymore. Like I don't actually submit very much. And it mattered more at the beginning because I wasn't sure if it was worth doing or if I had any skills whatsoever. And so it did make a difference at the beginning. It doesn't make that much of a difference now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's and just the conversation we had is about there's a tarot card, the Eight of Pentacles, and one of the interpretations is to thinking about the work itself without lust of result. So that was kind of the context we were saying. I think
Mhm.
uh, a lot of poets, are focused on submission and that type of thing, and some are not. So yeah, that was interesting. Is there a short list of poets or writers that you have looked at um, from a developmental standpoint that you felt shaped your early writing or your writing at this point at various stages?
Well, I thought about that a lot, and I don't think so. I mean, early on when I took Jim's class, his work was super accessible to me. And before that, in school, most of the work, I mean, we're reading Eliot, we're reading Yeats, those works were, you can't write like that. You can't write like
Mhm.
Keats. And his work was so of the moment and accessible, though that really helped me at the beginning. At that time, I read a lot of like Laura Jensen and Tess Gallagher, Denise
Mm,
Levertov, Caroline Kaiser, but I wouldn't say they were more influential than anybody else. And I think I probably would do well to do a deep dive into somebody, but I think everything you read kind of goes into your
mhm.
collection of ways people use language, of points of view, different ways of looking at the world, different concerns, and they're all kind of in there. And so I don't have a influential person, but I think everybody is pretty influential.
Right, right. Yeah, that's so do you have a practice or some way that you one of the examples is like Julia Cameron's Art Estates, or do you have a kind of a craft practice that you use to kind of uh, f to recharge the batteries and also to expose yourself to different techniques.
Well, I always thought, I first read The Artist a very long time ago, and I thought, oh, those morning pages sound really good. I did about two. And I thought those should really work, but they didn't work for me. And those kind of structured routines I'll do for maybe a week. I did a long time ago with a colleague. We would trade poems once a day during April for National Poetry Week, and out of the 30, I had maybe two good ones. I I don't have a very good sense of ritual that way, which is interesting because I love ritual, but I
Huh.
haven't ever been able to do it. And I haven't been able to really keep with the routine, even though, as a teacher all those years, had very structured routines. You did the same thing and you had to be on top of things. So it just, I don't know, it's much more sporadic and kind of eclectic. Although I do pretty well when I have a deadline. So if I'm like those cluster poems, I had a week and I did those 8 poems in a week. And
Wow. Okay.
well, they didn't really give me a lot of chance. That was not my choice. But I can do that. Or if there's a call for a certain kind of poem and I think, oh, that speaks to what I'm doing right now, I'll finish it. Um, a lot of times I think I have an inner routine, or an inner ritual, but it's not coming from the outside, if that makes any sense.
Right, right.
It
Yeah,
work.
it does. I do morning papers, but they turn into my to-do list. So that's, I mean, I guess the only value of that is getting it off of your poetry page. So, but one of the things you said, there are a couple of things I'd like to follow up on. I would like to talk a little bit about that cluster, but since you mentioned deadlines and that type of thing, I was wondering if you would like to do your reading from Bird Brains.
Sure.
Speaking of a prompt with a deadline.
Okay, so for those of you, I think a lot of you here have poems in bird brains. So there's lots of birds here in the audience. But that was I like the constraints. It was like you have to write about a bird off of the list. And so Susan asked pretty early, and I have some favorite birds. So I was able to get my bird, which was the Buick's wren. And she retitled it Song because you couldn't title it the name of the bird. So Song, pronounced Buick, saucy, flicky, scrabbling under the limelight's fluttering shade. Sunlight filter, fast car, trilling, scolding, cocked white brow, tip tail, crevice loving, nest loving, mate for life, chaparral and open road, cheeky songster west of the Mississippi, our evening chime of wrens, hidden in an eagle's plumage, vanilla strawberry blossoms. And I need to go back, I forgot to say this, that the Buick's wren is called in Irish legend the king of all birds because, like other wrens, the Buick's wren is linked to the myth where it outwits the larger birds. By hiding on an eagle's back, it flies higher than any other bird, earning the title King of the Birds. And the limelight in the poem is the kind of hydrangea that has pinkish white flowers. So the last line, vanilla strawberry blossoms, is the bird is in those instead of on the eagle. But I should have explained that to begin with.
So Phoebe and I were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I was trying to figure out what the hidden in eagle's plumage was. And I was looking at the bird, picture of the bird, and I thought it was because the plumage is similar, the coloring is similar. And so it's always interesting to try and parse, what's being said. And
The most beautiful sound. We hear it in our backyard. It's
I
just,
know, aren't they? They're so cute.
yeah.
Really cute.
But they're fierce too. That's the funny thing. It's a beautiful songbird, but they're fierce.
Yeah.
I tried to get swallows on the property and built a swallow's nest, and they took over. They would have no business.
Oh no.
No.
There's
No
no
one
limit.
else was. Yeah, they claimed it for themselves. So do you want to talk a little bit about the cluster exhibit? I mean, that was or you want me to kind of introduce it a little bit, or what? So that was actually my introduction to Arlene's work was an exhibit here in Port Townsend at Aurora Loop Gallery. And it was a collaborative exhibit following 7 prompts: who, what, when, where, why, where, how, why, and so what. And Arlene was the so what that wrapped things up. And that's really, I mean, it's interesting because I also wanted to get into that concept of, when you're doing an ekphrastic work and, or when you're doing collaborative, how, in particular in this, how you let go of the ownership of a piece and allow someone to take it and deconstruct it and interpret it. And for you, I'm curious about how you experienced that process, but also the feedback you got from the cluster members on your piece and how well they felt it represented and pulled it together. Because for me, it really crystallized each piece. So I'm
Oh,
interested
thank
in
you.
your
Well, I
experience.
should explain it a little bit, the process. So Cluster's it's a collective of women artists, and they've been together a long time, and they each have their own style, their own studios, their own media that they use, mediums. So they vary between all kinds of things: ceramic, painting, encaustics, fiber arts, big installations, really big installations, like in airports. But they work side by side, and they really encourage each other. So they decided as a group to do this. It's not really exquisite corpse. It's kind of hard to explain. So it kind of fell away, but they started with those journalistic questions: who, what, when, where, why, how. Then they added so what. And so they're 8 artists. They started with who, and everybody made something. And then they passed it to the next person, who then took what. But eventually those journalistic questions kind of fell off. But the rules were you could do whatever you wanted with that piece. You could completely dismantle it. You could paint over it. You could cut some of it off. You could just add on. And then you would give it to the next person, who would do the same thing. So they transformed, and I think they had maybe 3 weeks in between. I can't remember the exact time because I wasn't involved at that stage. And then they would keep passing it around. And I will put in the chat if you go on my website, I put the show on my website too. But on theirs, they show each stage, how it went through the 8 artists. And it's pretty amazing that they really changed it. And sometimes their process was, it was too beautiful. So they'd do something to ruin it, to make it less beautiful as it went on. And I think my favorite one was this really beautiful piece that ended up with a lighted sign that said, fuck if I care, or fuck if I know. Fuck if I know. And I think it might have been why. But so I went to their meeting when everything was done. So they brought in their finished pieces, and I had access to the process photographs in the different folders. And then I had a week, I think maybe 10 days, to write the poems to go with each of the finished pieces. And then they they did the show, and they decided at the gallery not to put the poems up on the walls, because that would take away from the visual art, which I agreed with. But then they made little folders, little pamphlets with the poems in it to pass out. But the work is really beautiful. So I would encourage everybody, if you can go on the cluster, PNW cluster, I think it is.
Mhm.
To look, it's very beautiful. And in terms of collaboration, I think that model's really nice. Like, I don't know how many visual artists do that. I think poets do it all the time. Like, we have workshops. I see a lot of my workshop people here, and people are always so supportive of each other. And there's not competition, but I'm not sure how common that is in the art world, to have groups stay together like that, um, complementing each other in all different ways, and helping each other put on shows. And they have some work right now in Sweden at the supermarket exhibit, and only one person could go this year, but they all sent in a piece. And it's a satire of our current federal government. And they each have a life-size portrait, but one of them has like a lizard face. I think it's Stephen Miller, of that each person. I mean, it's a life-size thing in their booth, and they have heads with masks that the viewers can take their picture. Like, you can have Stephen Miller alligator face.
Mhm.
So, but it's. I think that was a really nice example of collaboration.
Yeah, that was fun. Do you I don't know if you have it in front of you. Do you want to read your poem to that one? Don't ask again. Do you have that one in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me. I could probably get it, but I'd have to dig around a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want you to dig. I should have uh let's see, do I have it somewhere accessible?
I just
Maybe
put
I'll
the cluster thing in the chat.
uh, let me just see if I can
If you find it, you can read it.
Okay. All right. I'll read it because it's in front of me.
Okay.
Because that was the one I had open okay, don't ask again. See my apron, the one with the cherries printed on the bib, sash tied behind my back. See the cloth spread on the breakfast table, egg on a dish, ripe berries smashed. Who brewed and poured that coffee at 6 a.m., half and half, dissolved in darkness? Where's your clean boxers? Where's your toast? What's with your keys? Ask me if I care. I love that. Yeah, it's just such and it's so interesting because there was a very different tone in your poems for that collection, for the cluster than I felt in in your own collection, the or in the I weave a nest of foil. Do you see that? Did it feel like a different creative experience, or did it feel like a different tone for you?
It was way different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
would you care to comment on that a bit, or on the Ekphrastic experience in general? Because you also did a telephone, participated in the telephone game.
Well, with the cluster, because I knew all the artists and respect them and like them, that partly I wanted the poems to be in conversation with them as well as the artwork. But I really wanted to make sure that the poems were in conversation with the pieces and picked up what I thought, I mean, I was guessing, were the main points in the salient ideas or images in the work. And so I worked hard at trying to make it be respectful of that, at the same time not just describing it. So yeah, I really liked it because it was being in conversation and not just doing it on your own. And I was
Mhm.
thinking that when you work on your own, you're kind of just in conversation with your own subconscious. And sometimes it's kind of wiggly, like you're not really sure it's there. But with the art, it was there, I could look at it. And it really was, I was trying to do a tribute to each piece and interpret what I thought they were trying to say. And sometimes
Mhm.
it was, and sometimes it wasn't.
Right.
I'm not
Did,
sure. I don't always, well, I'm going to rephrase that. I never really have control over what I'm writing. In the revision, I'll control like sloppy things or, imprecise words, or I try to look at, line breaks and those kinds of things. But in terms of what happens in the poems, I don't think I really have that much control.
so when you're writing, does it feel kind of a flow? Do you start with an idea in mind, or is it kind of that, the freight train and you run to catch it before it, leaves the station, or some combination? What role does inspiration and just, uh, yeah, how does that creative process work for you?
Well, it's kind of a mix. I think, well, when I was in high school, I went to a talk with my class, and the author was Rumor Godden. I don't know if any of you know her, that she was writing a long time ago, and she said that when she was writing, it just all came through her, that she was a vehicle for the writing. And I
Mhm.
remember that and thinking, that really makes sense to me, that I kind of feel that way. Often I'll start with just an image or a phrase, and I won't know where that's really going. I find it really hard to start with an idea. So the kind of prompts that don't work for me are, tell about a time when you were really embarrassed. Like, well, one, I won't even remember. But but too, it's like, well, there's nothing to say about it. And other people do that really well. Other people write
Yeah,
about times in their life or relationships, and I I find that really difficult. So I would say maybe it's more like memory collage or impression collage or I don't know, different time collages.
right,
And
right.
often they make no sense, but that's how it is. That's how it is. It's, yeah, a lot of my work doesn't make sense. When I started it with much more narrative, and then I found that I just kind of don't do it anymore. A little bit, a little bit.
Right. So I remember hearing someone say, I can't remember, don't try and tie it up in a bow.
Yeah.
It's not a poet's job to,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily not make sense, but leave room. I think that's that. Leave room for interpretation, leave room for people to add to that creative, add to the conversation, as you said. And I think that too is perhaps a reflection of a confidence that you don't feel that you need to explain everything, that you can have a line in there or something, that's more not so concrete. One of the things when you were talking about the cluster group and the work that they were putting together for the exhibit, I wanted to circle back on that. You say something, and I'm like, oh. What role do you see, and they're doing primarily art, but what role do you see poetry playing in the world? And certainly this gets to Phoebe's about
Mhm.
why you do, as what you do as a poem, and what role does poetry play in your life, yes, but also in as part of the political discourse, what role can it play in a socio-political, if you think it does?
Well, I think historically it always has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You look back, ancient Chinese poetry, you look at, early, classical work, they're always commenting on whatever political kinds of things are going on. Sometimes in support of it, often, well, in those kinds of governments where you weren't allowed to say anything against it. But I think always, and particularly in times of turmoil, poetry, songs have risen up and stood for the people. And I think it's a way for people who are writing to speak out, but also for people who are reading to get courage from it and
Hmm.
to feel moved to do something. Thinking a lot of Aja Kaminsky's work, and even back when nobody was reading Emily Dickinson, she wrote a lot about the Civil
Hmm.
War. Walt Whitman, the same thing, the same time period. All those poems he wrote about the hospitals during the Civil War. I think every era has political things going on that are not very good. Ours are particularly bad. And because we're right in it, and we didn't think a few years ago this would ever happen. So the poetry is a way for people to raise their voices and keep going. It's very human. It's a human need and a human desire to speak out. And we have our reporters and we have AI and all kinds of things. But I think poetry is special in that way, where there's the craft, there's the art. Artists are doing it too, all
Hmm.
artists,
Yeah.
musicians, visual art, and saying this isn't right, this isn't right, that there are better ways. And speaking to, outside of commerce, outside of political violence, outside of power, that there is more to us than those things. Does that make sense? That
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
this,
I
yeah.
I think too that that is why the power of expression is why a lot of um, people are targeted. That's why governments target or yeah um, target these voices, this artwork, these books, that type of thing. So if we ever doubt the power,
Hmm.
that's certainly something to keep in mind. You've taught poetry in prisons and mentored emerging poets. So can you speak a little bit about the power of poetry in these environments? How you've seen that change the budding poets.
Okay, it's my favorite thing. Actually, that I would say that's my true calling is working with young people. And I would there are in the audience here is like mostly teachers, and I think we would all say the same thing. There's nothing more magical and wonderful than working among young people who are writing. And I would say, and I've had hundreds of students, and I mean literally hundreds, that everybody can write. Everybody can write a poem. Not everybody can write a play or a story, but everyone can write poems, and they want to. And there's nothing more transformative and magical than watching that happen. And when they read their work out loud, it's just a life-changing thing for both the listener and the readers. But I would say, I mean, and most of the audience here knows this, that children, young people go to language naturally. I think they love to do it. And in this audience here, these are really gifted teachers, and they can make these wonderful pieces of art. And kids write really quickly. They're not like us where we have to revise it for several months. They're done like 15 minutes, and it'll be good, pretty good, good enough. And they're proud of it, and they want to share it, and they'll decorate it and write pictures, draw pictures around it. Um, and it really varies. I've done classrooms where the emphasis was in high school, you start going into craft, you start looking at craft, and you use models of really good writers. And in Pongo, where we work in the juvenile detention and works in the hospital, it's more of a therapeutic model. And so it's a one-on-one kind of mentoring situation. And you often won't see a youth more than one time, sometimes two. And all we ask is just write from your heart. And they really do. And they write beautiful things, sometimes really sad and disturbing things, really painful, joyful, hopeful. And they fill out these little surveys, and they almost all say, I'd say 97%, it was meaningful and they liked it. And we just see it year after year over and over, and it is really amazing. I think it's pretty magical what happens. And so I would say more of it. I mean, the writers in the schools reach thousands of kids, and that's wonderful, and it's probably not enough. Like there are schools where they don't have writers in the schools come.
All right. Yeah, that's great. I really do think that there's something powerful about a young person finding their voice, because there's a lot of loneliness, there's a lot of when you're a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questioning, and to be able to find that channel to that's true, that's not coming in from technology or the external, that's really where they're tapping into their truth, can be a really a powerful thing. So that's great. Um, I also wanted to ask, you know, are you working on something now that you would like to share? Or
Well, I can tell about it. I'm working on a couple of things. One is I'm kind of reworking this chapbook, which are a lot of poems about hospital, Because my little grandchild, when she was 2, was in the hospital for a really long time at Children's Hospital with a pretty serious issue. And so I spent a lot of time in the Children's Hospital. So and I was in the hospital, nothing was wrong with me, but I was there. And so there's some hospital poems and poems about friendship. And I noticed, and I'm not sure what's going to happen in this particular chat, but I write a lot about dead people, interested in spirituality, but also it's like, wow, a lot of my poems about people who've died. And I have always done that, and I'm not really sure what's going on there, except I think that the poems are about what exists beyond our here and now, and that includes before and after life and all of that. And I have been working on the same project for a long time. I finished up a project with my relative on the Cultural Revolution in China because she had met people who were involved in the early salons that gave birth to, the Misty poets. And so we finished that up, and now we're doing another one. It's pretty crazy. Her grandpa came from China in the 1800s, and one of his stops was at Rock Springs, Wyoming, where there was a big coal mining to feed the steam engines. And at one point, so I
Yeah.
went there last summer, there was a kind of a little convention where at one point there was a labor dispute that they were fighting, and then some of the workers who were striking, the Chinese people came in and they were working in the mines for lower wages, and then they massacred like 80 or 30 people. And so the massacre was there, and her relative was there but was not killed. But they're doing an archaeological dig, so I got to see the dig and a lot of talks about that. And we're going back in June to investigate that. So I'm thinking of maybe a poem series based on her grandpa, who was wild. I mean, he came early and he kept going back and forth. It kept changing his name so he could go through the Philippines. Like you could go through the Philippines and come to America, but so he had a different name every time. He was
I
he
don't
was
think
a
that would
business
work now.
person. He was a crafty guy, a business person, a liaison between the U.S. railroads and China. I don't even know if this was good or not, bringing the laborers. Then he became a Christian itinerant preacher who went around the Midwest in their tent revivals. Then he became an Eastern doctor, Eastern medicine doctor, who also did a little Western practice. And then he got involved with early civil rights organizations, I think in Chicago. And then he got married to a teenage girl. He was like in his 50s and had a whole bunch of kids. So I think this will be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like a character.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah.
track down his comings and goings.
Yeah. You have to you have to almost do, I don't know, a sketch of it, to follow the
I think
all
it'd
of
be
the
interesting.
recreations, the identities and that type of thing.
Well, there's an anthropologist from Grinnell College who has been she's a professor, but she has a sabbatical this year, has been working on I don't know, her project is on Chinese Chinatowns throughout the West, but she's also done a lot of research on this family. So there's a lot of academic research on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, what would you say is the role that poetry plays in your life now? Now.
Well, I think you had asked me in the list of questions, is it fun? It's really fun. Like
Yeah, good.
it's fun to read, it's fun to write, it's fun to go to conferences, it's fun to go to readings. But I think the most fun is like these people here and all these communities of people like Phoebe and you that, I've just met, and people, other writers. It's just such an amazing community. And it's big. I mean, there are people all over. I think some people I consider in my communities that I never really met, just on Zoom. And it's a nice, I don't know if subset is the word, but a nice group of people that I feel really lucky to have access to.
Right. Absolutely. Um, I don't know if anyone has questions. I don't know if I have access to. Oh, hang on. Let me see. Uh, I'm just trying to see. Okay.
I don't see any questions. Does anybody?
Okay. Yeah. I love Kathleen's. This conversation makes me want to write. Not a lot of things make me feel that way. So that's a very place
Oh,
happy.
oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's great. That's great.
I,
Um, there was one other thing. So speaking of community, and I'm out on the Olympic Peninsula, and so there's kind of this. Sometimes a lot of the groups that I'm connected with, I'm connected via Zoom, and um, and it's interesting doing, say, I did the telephone thing as well, to see how many people internationally are doing really creative, connective work. And and I'm wondering just what your thoughts are on that whole telephone experience, because I'm thinking that there's something transformation, potentially transformational about that game, about us actually, it's like being able to see the mycelium,
Mhm.
underneath the earth, the potential for transformation on a large scale. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I thought it was really wonderful. And for those of you who, a lot of you in here are in one of the iterations of telephone. Um, I think it's amazing. So the guy who started it lives here in Seattle.
Oh, he
And
does.
yeah, and I do not understand the technology is incredible, but
Yeah.
it's this huge web of, it's like the telephone game where you whisper to the person next to you, and then they say to the person next to them and next to them, except there are like 1,000 people, and how it's not exactly like that, but you respond to a given prompt which is not in your medium. So it might be a film or dance or music or photograph. And then if you're a literary person, and then yours will go to someone who's maybe a composer, or, and there's this huge web. I was in two,
Mhm.
and the first one was during the pandemic. So it was particularly meaningful, or it was his second one, because people were in their homes all the
Mhm.
time, and to see this connection. And it's incredible. They were from all over the world, and all these different art forms. And the last one, which was finished just this year, um, was even bigger. And I don't
Yeah.
know, Jenny, did you go to the one of the things he had these events?
I did not go to one of the events. No, no. And I just participated in the last round. I
Mhm.
think Susan Rich mentioned it to
Mm.
me. Um, so no, I didn't. And but it just I just think there's something to it. And I'm trying to wrap my head around what it is and how to leverage that, because there's so much discord
Mhm.
now, and so much friction, and yet all of the people who were connected in a positive manner. So clearly we as a people are capable
Mhm.
of better and of more creative responses, and so yeah, I just I'm not sure where to go with that, but
It was really nice. And in the first one, so Jean and I went to, at, it was COVID time, but the fellow who created it lives in West Seattle and had a little party at his house. And so we went. It was the first time I'd gone to a party after COVID. It was great. But he poured his heart into that project, which is
yeah.
so, I don't even understand. These guys are computer geniuses, how they managed it all. But to know that someone would put that much effort, no pay, nothing, is really, that's really neat, isn't it? Just to do
Yeah.
something for
Yeah.
them.
Number of people really contributed
Yeah.
a lot of technical expertise. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a positive. It makes me
Yeah.
hopeful for,
Yeah.
a different way forward.
And that
So,
people will do things not expecting to be paid and not expecting to be famous. That's
yeah.
really nice. That's really
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. Is there something that you would like to share? Oh my gosh, readings. We were going to do more readings. I got sidetracked. Um, uh, okay.
You want me to read one?
Yes, could you?
I'll read
And
it.
then I don't know if there are any questions, and I don't know how we're doing on time, but um, hmm. Well, I'm going to put a request in for, yeah, if you are lucky.
Okay. This one's kind of hopeful.
Yeah, that's a
It's a good place to end.
hopeful.
Okay. If you are lucky, if you are lucky in this life, a hen's egg will appear in your palm. If you are lucky, someone you love will have placed it there. All over the country, napkins fall like wings in the dark. When candlelight falls, someone you love will place the goblets, no matter how long since he or she has departed. If salt spills, spelling good fortune, it's a gift on the open leaves. You may remember the moon cradles all orphans. Rain will wash the clean part in your hair, and your hands cup to receive it.
Yeah, that's just lovely.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to
Yeah,
thank
thank you.
Phoebe and Nina for doing this and for all of these friends for being here. That's really special.
It was special. Thank you. God.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. It's like having a
Yay.
little party in your house.
Yeah, and you don't spend any gas money.
There's no snacks, you know.
Thanks everybody for being here.
Imaginary snacks.
Thanks, Phoebe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you,
we'll,
Arlene.
Everybody.
we'll see you again.
Okay.
Great fun.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.